Welcome back to the Marty Up North show on here on the Western Standard. I'm your host, Marty Up North, coming at you live from Calgary. Almost didn't make it in this morning. I thought I was going to have to call John and say, "Hey, we're going to have to do this one remotely." I think the colors come back in my knuckles right now, but it was a bit of a white knuckle drive. I come in from out of town. I live northwest of Calgary, and I take a back way in, and there's like a big hill where I got to go, and the guy in front of me, or gal, I didn't get to see, decided that they were getting a little nervous and were hitting the brakes on the hill going down. And I was like, no, I'm not having any of that. So I had to try and swerve around and then accelerate going up the hill. It's all good. Got it, made it. But reminder, snow tires make a big difference on cars. I know a lot of people like to just run those all seasons, but nothing beats an actual proper snow tire. All right. And actually, it's a kind of an interesting segue into the story, into the show, because I've told you guys I've been canvassing on the side of the road. So I got a spot that I go to every day now. I think I've spent about 24 days, about 4 hours a day at a location that has become sort of a fixture in Northwest Calgary, along Bear Spa, or along Crowchild 1A, and at the Bear Spa intersection. We got two crews of canvassers there. We're not there. Usually I'm not there on Thursdays. None of us are there today because of the weather. Kind of good to take a break. And it is the topic of what I want to talk about today. You guys have probably seen, if you follow me on X, you've seen not just my incident, you've seen other incidents. There's been a growing number of incidents of people who are canvassing getting harassed. And I've had so far two videos now that have gone not viral, but that have made the rounds on X. And in both instances, people have been coming to us disingenuine, right? They're not interested in signing, and we know that. I mean, we play a little game when somebody steps out of the car. Now we ask ourselves, friend or foe, and there's a pattern that's emerging. And we have some people that come out and they're not interested in signing. They're just interested in either some of them just come out immediately, guns a-blazing, hurling insults at us and being offensive. And when that happens, I'm going to say this, I was wrongly instructed to take out a camera and start recording and tell them that, they're interfering with the activities of a canvasser and that it could lead to fines. Turns out that's not the case. So, and not coincidentally, yesterday, Elections Alberta put out a press release. So, John, you want to just flash that up for us real quick? And I'm not going to read the press release here, but the title says Elections Alberta addresses petition canvassers' conduct, harassment, and misinformation. So that wasn't a coincidence, because apparently my incident is not the only one. There's been like dozens, even up to 100. And so Elections Alberta felt it was necessary to clarify some things, which led me then to go look at the the Alberta Elections Act and go see a few things. And I was a little disappointed in what I read in there. So when you become a canvasser, you are signing a code of conduct that says you won't harass people who come to sign. Or if you're going door knocking and you go and try and get a signature and somebody says, I'm not interested, you just, say thank you and walk away. So we the canvassers have signed a code of conduct, and we're not allowed to harass while we're doing our job. But the reverse actually doesn't apply. So if somebody comes and harasses us while we're canvassing or gets really offensive to us, the only recourse we have, Elections Alberta is not going to come to our defense. The only people who are going to come to our defense is if we call 911 or the police and then file a report. So I was misled into thinking that. And what it made me realize is that, I know I'm a target of some persistent harassment. They want to harass me. They want to capture me on video losing, my cool, my temper, which they kind of did the other day. But now I'm realizing this is a strategy. They want to harass us so that they catch us being, losing our cool, and potentially then they can complain to Elections Alberta, and Elections Alberta will investigate us. So all that to say that, citizens on the side of the road or walking door to door collecting signatures for a petition are literally held to a higher standard than the people we're trying to hold accountable. We're trying to hold politicians accountable. We're trying to hold senior bureaucrats and civil servants accountable. And we're actually trying to do something good for the lunatics that are running around there, but we are held at a higher standard. So it's just a message out to my fellow canvassers. Hold yourself to a higher standard. That's what the government wants, but that's what we're going to do as well. Hold yourself to a higher standard. Don't fall for the shenanigans. Collect your signatures. If somebody comes by, do it in groups. And if somebody comes by to harass you, just disconnect and de-escalate and let it go. So that was a good lesson for me coming in the other days. All right. So otherwise, it's your show, folks. It's your show, and it's a call-in show. That's the format we're trying to use. It's a call-in show. I mean, I got a couple of things written down here that I'll happily talk about. But ask me a question. Let's have some dialogue, and then just realized something last week while I was doing the show. Right, there's moments where there aren't calls coming in, but I realized that you guys also can, if you're more comfortable, just fire up a question on the side there. And John, the producer, will pick out the odd one and put them on the big screen, and I can read them out, and we can have the dialogue that way. But like I said last week, don't be afraid, folks. The number's on the bottom. I don't think anybody pays long distance anymore. Call in, and no need to do like Diane did 2 weeks ago, build up the courage to call Marty. I'm just a guy, and I just want to chat about things. And I'll tell you some of the things that are on my list today, right? Beyond the canvassing. Oh, by the way, and the canvassing is going well. I should mention that the canvassing, for me in particular, is going extremely well. I set myself a target of getting 1,000 signatures. I'm well over the halfway mark. I still got 55 days to do it. And now we're entering a new phase of canvassing, which is because at first we were doing the easy stuff. At first we're calling the people who had already pledged to sign. We call them, and now we're going door to door, which is a new phase. And the door to door is actually turning out to be really successful. Some small groups that are reporting back are going around door to door and getting like 40, 50, 60% success rate on doors that open, of course, right? Because sometimes people aren't there. And I also want to mention the urgency of the canvassing. But before I go there, we do have a call. And before I take this call, reminder, folks, name, where you're calling from, and I'll ask you sometimes to stay on the line, and sometimes I'll just ask you to, after you do your question, to please hang up so that other people can call in, because we don't have a switchboard. So, all right, go ahead on the line. Name and where you're calling from.
Good afternoon. My name is Ian Coates. I'm calling from in between Castor and Alliance, Alberta.
Cool.
I really appreciate the work you're doing. It's really important. Man, it must be so challenging to keep your cool with some of these actors that you're encountering. My question is, if you could please talk about the organization of the people who are harassing you, and if you've sort of put any pieces of that puzzle together.
Got it. Okay, cool.
Thanks very much for your time.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, first of all, it is challenging to keep your cool when somebody is harassing you and playing loud music or doing things, right? And I have a group, and so the incident the other day, I lose my cool. Okay, I'll admit it. I'm not I idle at 70. That's what I tell. I idle at 70. I can go to 100 pretty darn quick. So my wife's always been critical of me of that. So then I said, okay, Karen, you handle some of these calls, right? So I'm laughing because it was funny to watch her lose her cool. So it's really easily said, but it's a whole other thing to keep your cool. Is there an organization that's doing this on purpose? I think so. I mean, look, there's organizations that launch a whole bunch of recall petitions against MLAs, right? Don't quote me on the exact number. I think it was 24 or 25 recall petitions were launched near the end of last year. They've all been sort of meeting their deadlines, and none of them have been successful. And we know a lot of that was done by the unions and the NDP. And then you can go to Elections Alberta and see who's registered as third-party advertisers and things like that. So there is, I think, on the other side, there's a pretty concerted effort, organization to try and disrupt what we're trying to do. Now that said, you can see in the video, you could go back and watch the video, but near the end of the video, what really caught my attention on the incident I had a couple of days ago is that when the lady turned around and drove past us and seemed to be leaving, she didn't. She stopped and she engaged with a vehicle that was parked on the side of the road. So I walked up to that vehicle because I was like still filming. And the gentleman held the camera in my face, and it was weird because the first question he said to me or asked me is, "Are you armed?" So I found that unusual. I said, "No, I'm not armed. I'm just, filming this lady who tried to assault me with the vehicle." And then he said, "Well, that's not how there was a dialogue." And all I'll say about that dialogue is that it looked like they were setting a narrative and they were filming, but I disrupted their narrative because I stayed calm and I was asking questions. The biggest regret I have about that incident is that, to me, when I hear the sound, there was a dispatch radio in that car. So, anyways, I don't know who. I have a suspicion that it's the NDP and perhaps federal organizations, but somebody's definitely trying to disrupt us.
Excellent. Another observation I've had, and I'd like to hear what your experience has been. A lot of young people I talk to, like who are, like early 20s or even like in their late teenagers, are really pro-separatist. Yep. And in other parts of Canada, are really kind of questioning this political system we have and questioning all the flaws in it, and seem to have a lot more energy to kind of engage in protest. What has your experience been with young people, and are you seeing any trends there?
Okay. Excellent question. It was Ian, right? I'll ask you to hang up. I'll answer that so we can get other calls on the line. But I've said this several times. There is no unique demographic of who signs. So we've had across the spectrum of who signs. There is a evolving, very unique demographic of who doesn't want to sign, and the people who are generally opposed and very vocal about it are very senior people, what I call the boomers, who have something, who are hanging on to a very nostalgic Canada and are worried about their pension and are worried about whatever, the wealth they've accumulated. On the other hand, the youth are an interesting group. They are very disenfranchised. A lot of youth that we come across are disenfranchised because their lives is different. If you're a 24-year-old kid today, your prospects, when you look next 10 years, it's dismal compared to when I was 24 years old in the early 90s. I mean, God, I was, future's so bright, I got to wear shades. Like my prospects, I never worried about my future, but the kids today worry about their future. So you're absolutely correct. They are on board with the separatist movement. The only problem we have is they are extremely, they're the digital generation, and so coming out and signing in person for them is a difficult thing. We haven't figured out how to reach out to them, because I guarantee you, if we could allow the petition to occur online via signatures, the kids would be all, I call them the kids, the young generations would be all over it. So go ahead, caller. What's on your mind?
Hey, it's Jesse in GP.
How's it going, Jesse?
Good, thanks. Hey, are you armed, by the way? I'm just kidding.
What a weird question that was, man. That freaked me out. That question really freaked me out. Like that's the one where my tingly senses went up, right? Like, why is this guy asking me that? But anyway, sorry. Yeah.
And rightfully so, because that's that is a very off the wall question, right? So it's obviously predicated, I think. But what I wanted to call about was in regards to organization on that side, we also need to be organized on our side. So there's a lot of people. I had a signing event, pop-up signing event yesterday on the Husky Road. You probably know where the Husky Road is, so it's a GP.
Yep.
And I'm capturing a lot of the truckers, oil and gas workers, crews, construction, all the camp folks and stuff because, and this is the problem, they're out there working and they can't get in. And this goes along with what you just said in regards to an internet signing drive would be nice. And that just, I was hoping that we could try and look at this as a plea to everyone who's a canvasser, such as myself, is to put these pop-ups on the oil and gas roads because they will sign. They're stopping and signing. And the first thing I hear, and it's all walks of life, Native, Indigenous people, like obviously Black people, East Asians, like everybody, right? But they're too busy working that they can't get in and sign, right? So canvasser, please pop up on the side of the oil and gas roads because these guys are going to sign. This was your 100% signing people, and the people that are driving by have already signed.
Yeah.
Right?
No. Look, awesome. Thanks, Jess. I got a couple of goosebumps while you were saying that. And so that's another message we get, right? We're on the side of the road. People stop. They see us one day. They go by and don't lose, like set up consistency, set up at the same spot day after day. They see us, they go by, they don't sign. They see us, they go by, they don't sign. Then finally on the third day, they realize ahead of time, they're going to be there. They look for us, they come and sign. And we overwhelmingly hear that. I'm so busy. And that's what I tell them. That's why we have to come to you. The Albertans that are going to sign the petition are the ones working and paying taxes, and the ones that are not going to sign it are the ones that are not working, collecting. The givers versus the makers versus the takers. So I totally agree. Make it as convenient as possible to go to the folks now. And I didn't want to talk too much about the petition, but I'll say one last thing. You guys probably saw Mitch Sylvester, the proponent of the petition, come out last week and talk about the fact that there are, I think 6 or 7 First Nations now up in northern Alberta that have filed an injunction. So an injunction simply means they're trying to stop the process, and they're not trying to stop the referendum. They're trying to stop the collection of signatures, which to me is one of the most basic tenets of democracy. So they're trying to stop that. And the judge is going to hear their motion on this injunction, like on April 5, 6, 7th kind of thing. And my fear, I think it's completely ridiculous that a judge would accept this injunction. We're just citizens exercising our democratic right. But you know how judges have been in this country of late. They're appointed by liberals, and they've become kind of puppets of the state, and they're scared to adjudicate properly. That's my opinion. So I think the judge might just hear this and say, yeah, well, I'll err on the side of caution, and I will, freeze the signature collection. I don't think that should matter. I mean, if some guy tells me you're not allowed to collect signatures, what's he going to do? Come and stop all thousands of canvassers from collecting signatures? I mean, I don't see the mechanism, or invalidate the signatures we've collected. So just because of that, the organizers are trying to put a little bit, keep the pedal to the metal and keep collecting signatures, get as many, so that hopefully we're well past the threshold in case they cancel the petition and the injunction goes through. But anyways, let's try and move on to another topic. But go ahead, on the line, name, where are you calling from?
It's Donald.
Hi, Donald. How are you?
I'm good, Marty. Donald here from Vancouver, News Now Canada Independent Media here. So I've been seeing all these videos online where these so-called left-wing clowns basically interfere in elections. Where are the police to deal with these people who are interfering with elections? And plus, here in BC, they do not like Daniel Smith at all. They call her a fascist. They call her a Nazi. They call her everything here. And I've been in British Columbia for a month now, and it's a socialist city here.
Yeah, well, like I said at the start of the show, I mean, the cops don't come, and the cops only come if somebody calls them. They come if a protest gets big enough and the politicians ask them to stand in between two sides, like when there's a big protest in Vancouver or where there's the big ones somewhere, then you see the police come out and try and keep the groups apart. But in the case of just somebody on the side of the road or going door to door collecting signatures, there's no there's no protection. It is what it is, and I'll say this, and I think you can validate it too. I see a lot of double standard in police forces these days, especially in Vancouver. Actually, interesting that you're calling from there. I mean, we watch some of your guys' protests, and we do see, independent media interviewing the police, and the police are giving warnings that if you were to try and take down the Palestinian flag, you're going to get hit with mischief. But on the other hand, the fact that somebody's flying a Palestinian flag somewhere where they shouldn't, to me, that's mischief, but they don't get hit with mischief. So, yeah, I hope that answers the question, Don. Thanks for calling. You got a follow-up, or is like...
Oh, I do have a follow-up here. This weekend, they're having a Palestine protest this weekend. I don't know what it's about. But every time independent media try to cover this, Vancouver police basically threaten to arrest us, threaten to and tell us to leave and all that stuff. We're antagonizing. And the Vancouver police don't understand about Fleming versus Ontario, where you're allowed to basically counter-protest, but some of these NDP police departments just don't give a care about people's rights at all. Like here, we're having like Kerr Armstrong, like Dallas Brody being attacked by these Antifa people. Like over the weekend, I went to her lunchathon or something in here in Vancouver. Yeah, First Nations people telling us to get off our land, to get out of here. You're a settler. You're an immigrant, just basically, and plus making fun of me for who I am as my disability.
Yeah.
Tell me I have a white piece of trash and a whole bunch of names.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, thanks for that, Don. Get off the line, please. And then, but yeah, there's a double standard. And then, well, I mean, I didn't even have it on my list of things to talk about today, but now you remind me of, laws that make it even more difficult for us to express our opinions as independent media, right? I think we're going to talk about this. Let's talk about this for the second half of the show here. C9, right? So C9 is, well, yesterday went through second reading. I haven't even had a chance to check. Maybe somebody can make a comment on it. I think it actually went to third reading immediately today and is being forced through the House of Commons. And C9 is one of those bills that should scare everybody when it comes to free speech, right? I'm joking about this because I'm joking, but not joking about it. I mean, I am producing content, and I'm sitting on the side of the road there producing content. And I was talking to one of the other people there, and I said, yeah, between the three of us, one of us will be arrested for under C9 in the next 6 months. Like I'm almost certain of that, because that's what they're trying to do. It's another step in eroding our democratic right? Look at what we just talked about. They don't want me canvassing. That's almost like trying to stop me from voting, which, by the way, some people do think that voting is a useless exercise, that we do it, it's mostly theatrics, but you start to believe it after a while because you start to see what they're doing to us. And C9, if it passes, is an extremely scary piece of legislature. It's the anti-hate bill, and a lot of people have rightfully talked about the fact that there is such a thing as hate, but it's not a crime. I hate olives. You love them. That's fine. It's just an emotion. It's just a word, but they're trying to turn hate into something else. And that totally worries me. And I'll just, before I go to the question, I'll say this about that bill. The other thing that worries me about that bill is that Mark Carney is trying to pass something crazy unpopular like that and damaging, and he's trying to do it with a minority government, right? And we'll come back after the call. We'll talk about how he's rebuilding his minority. He's getting back to a majority, right? He's getting close. So if Carney's willing to pass a bill like C9 with barely a majority, what do you think he would do if he had a full majority, right? How crazy would he be? So let's come back to that one on the majority. But go ahead, caller on the line. Where are you calling from?
Oh, hi. My name is Gordon. I'm calling from Edmonton.
Hi, Gordon.
Yeah, no, I'm just calling just to kind of state, everything that's happening out there with the harassment and all the bad press, all the Easterners calling us all kinds of different names. It's not unexpected. I totally expected this down the road, that this would happen. They were going to go after the big people in the group, Jeff and people like yourself and a lot of the people who are the all of them. So it's totally not unexpected that this is happening. The only thing I'm so concerned about, why there isn't a little more fight back against people like Jason Kenney telling Albertans what kind of a premier he was, like Lukasiak, who tried to rip off the Alberta citizens on when he was there. Why aren't we doing more of this? Letting know it's maybe, they're dirty playing. I'm saying maybe we should be reminding people of the type of characters that we're coming after, the people who are coming after us now. We got to let people know.
I appreciate that thought. You gave me a whole segment to talk about. So if you don't mind, like I said, hang up. I appreciate thanks for the comment, Gord. Gord brings up like so many things, and this will tie into some of the things I wanted to talk about. So let's finish real quick on the minority government, right? So yesterday there was a or 2 days ago there was a floor crossing. I'm not surprised that it was an NDP MP. I thought all along that Carney would actually go and pick off, the remaining 3 or 4 NDP MPs. That made sense. So he's rebuilding his minority that way, and then or his majority, sorry. And then I think it's maybe somebody can confirm. I'm pretty sure it's April 19th, but quietly last week, 3 by-elections were announced. So there's a by-election in Terrebonne, Quebec. That's the one that was disqualified. That was an interesting one, right? That's the one that the Bloc won on the first count. And then on the recount, the Liberals won by 1 vote. And then we found out that some of the mail-in ballots had gone to the wrong envelope or wrong polling station, whatever. And then finally that went to court, and the court said null and void. So the results of that writing were null and void. So that one's being recontested. So there's a by-election there. And then there's 2 in the Toronto area, one in Chrystia Freeland's old riding, and I believe the other one is in Bill Blair's old riding. So if Carney wins those 3 by-elections, and I think he'll get 2 out of 3. Hopefully the people of Quebec woke up after the Terrebonne fiasco. He'll win 2 out of 3 plus the one he got, so he's back into majority territory, which is scary for all of us. But to the other point of that Gord was mentioning, who's holding politicians and other people accountable? And I'll say this, right? I'm a private citizen. Like, I don't hold office, which is the definition of private citizen. Sure, I have a big following and I'm popular and I'm known, but so are actors, so are hockey players, so are, so if you're in the media, in sports, whatever, you are still a private citizen. The definition of a non-private citizen is a public servant, like an elected official. So it's very interesting that people come after guys like me and others because I don't have access to the levers of power. And what becomes really interesting is that even the media comes after me. And that's the segue I want to talk about that's been interesting this week that ties in what Gord just said. The media, right? What's the media doing? The mainstream media, not these guys. I mean, Western Standard, Rebel News, little guys, whatever, people on X. They're independent media that you pay for. Sure, you pay for them, which makes them a little bit biased, but we've always had, people have a bias, but that's not a conflict of interest. It's a bias. There's a difference. Whereas a lot of the mainstream media in this country is fully paid for by the government. The CBC is an example, right? The CBC gets paid $1.6 billion a year to exist. That's a conflict of interest. In the private sector, that's a conflict of interest. If you're paid by someone, you're beholden to them. You work for them. So Rosemary Barton can say whatever the heck she wants. She can say, I'm impartial, I'm unbiased. No, you're not. You work for the government. So, and plus she's already, and you know where I'm going with this, right? Before I go into the testimony of Travis there 2 days ago, I just want to bring it back to one quick thing, right? The role of the media. We live in a democracy, which is a fragile thing. And to me, the democracy that we live in, there's 5 important pillars, right? There's the voter. There's you and I, we vote. And And unfortunately, we give everybody a vote. That's a reality we have to deal with. Because I mean, if it was entirely up to me, there's some people that I don't think are smart enough to vote, and we shouldn't let them vote. But that's the cornerstone. We expect them to vote and be responsible with their vote and educate themselves before they vote. So that's the first pillar. The second pillar is the government. Whatever body forms the government. I mean, everybody in the House of Commons or in the legislature is officially the government. But in this context, I'm talking about the ruling side of the government, right? So, so you got the voter, you got the government, you got the opposition. The government makes the rules. The opposition holds the government accountable. Have you watched the House of Commons right now? It's almost comical, right? We just talked about it. If you have a majority, the opposition is irrelevant. And then there used to be the media that had an important role, and the media's role was, sure, the media is there to report on the fire that happened last week and the theft and the rising crime rate and other things. But the media was also had a key role, which was to hold politicians accountable. And we don't see that. I like, so to Gord's point, who's holding Jason Kenney accountable when he starts spewing lies, or Thomas Lukasik, or even Nenshi? I mean, Nenshi last week sitting on the steps of the legislature in Edmonton, like, you could listen to him and you can analyze him as he's going, and you can go lie, 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 lie. I mean, in real time, if you're smart, you can see the lies. If you want to take the time, you can go, he said that something was said in the legislature. You can go see what was said, and you can quickly realize it was a lie. So, I've done 4 pillars. The 5th pillar of our democracy used to be me as a professional, the doctors, the engineers, the accountants, the scientists, who would be consulted on and relied on to help develop policies. Because, the sad part is governments pass policies nowadays without consulting a broad group, and the experts. We used to have a role in that whole hierarchy. So I will go back to, I'll finish my thoughts on that, because I do want to talk about the whistleblower at the CBC, but I got a comment on the screen. I got to read it. It says, "Hey, Marty, please talk about what the Chiefs are trying to do in court to stall the referendum process." Yeah, I talked about it real quick, right? They're basically trying to say that they're saying that the Clarity Act is invalid, and they're saying that Danielle Smith here in Alberta, that the Citizens Initiative is invalid. And so they're literally trying to stop people from just collecting signatures to petition the government. That's all they have right now, which is interesting, because if you read the Clarity Act says that somebody trying to block the exercise of citizens is unconstitutional. I mean, the word constitutional these days is getting thrown around. Everybody's saying constitutional, unconstitutional. I'm kind of at the point where we're generally making a giant mockery of our whole democratic system. It's a comment. Somebody asked that question last week on Thursday. Why don't we pass laws to prevent some of these things happen? And we had a good chat about that. Our governments and our courts are making a mockery of the laws. So where was I? We're talking about the role of the CBC or the mainstream media in holding governments accountable, which brings us to the really cool event of, the days are flowing through. I think it was Tuesday, right? So Tuesday, Travis, I forget his last name, but he's the whistleblower guy, worked for the CBC as a producer and was trying to do his job impartially and bring in, he was helping, he's bringing in guests to have political discussions on camera. And every time he tried to bring in a conservative or right-leaning guest, it got rejected. And then he got sort of what we call in the world, constructive dismissal. They gave him a job that he didn't like, right? Businesses will even do that, and it's an illegal activity. You give a guy a job or a gal that they don't like, and you hope they quit. You can't do that, So he tolerated that, and in the end, he kind of did quit, but then he decided to become a whistleblower. Some people say he's just a high maintenance employee. No, I think he is a genuine whistleblower. And of course, if you're complaining against your employer and your employer happens to be the CBC, which is financed by the government, boy, the pockets are deep on that side. And this poor guy is just being hammered. Well, he got a great opportunity this week. He got to go in a parliamentary committee. So And Parliament. So there's three places to me where you're still supposed to tell the truth. You're supposed to tell the truth when you go in court, right? Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, and that's pretty good there. Like in court, it lasts long enough, and if you get caught lying, there's some real repercussions in court. The other place you're supposed to tell the truth is in the House of Commons. Well, we all know how that goes, right? I've seen the House of Commons these days. I see a lot of lying going on in the House of Commons. The third one were these parliamentary committees, and they used to be pretty good. You could expect to watch the parliamentary committee, and you could expect, the finance committee to interview the budget officer and things like that, and you'd get some really good feedback and some truth. Well, that's completely turned into a gong show. So poor Travis goes to a parliamentary committee to talk about sort of censorship and what's going on at the CBC. And the parliamentary committee is about 90 minutes long, and it's multi-partisan. I mean, there's NDP, there's Bloc, there's Conservatives, and whatever. And the way it works nowadays is the witness. So in this instance, he's brought in as a witness. The witness only gets about 4 minutes. In your opening statement to the parliamentary committee, they're not going to interrupt you. So during those first 4 minutes, man, whatever your talking points are, you got to get them off across real quick. So in the first 4 minutes, he's giving a whole bunch of examples of how Rosie Barton and David Cochrane and others were constantly blocking him. And he's basically saying that the CBC only accepted liberal guests and never accepted proper conservative guests. But after that, once the committee's over, once his opening speech is over, and now it's question and answers from committee members, that the next 86 minutes are just a joke, because they're yelling over each other, and they're constantly, point of order, point of order, point of order, I object, point of order, I object, and nothing gets said. So that whole exchange was interesting. The 4 minutes that he got to talk are interesting. Nothing really new for most of us. We know that there's a lot of censorship going on at the CBC. It's not going to kill Rosie Barton's job or career. In fact, they'll probably make her a senator in the next couple of years. It ain't going to do anything for David Cochrane. But it gave us some ammunition and some further food for thought, and then some independents will continue to dig into what's going on at the CBC. So, we'll leave it at that. All right. What else was I going to talk about? Well, I talked about actually. Let's finish on the Chiefs. So, the Chiefs. It's funny because they went to the to the legislature. They're trying to block in the courts. That's step one. Then yesterday or 2 days ago, they went to the legislature. They're on the steps there with Naheed Nenshi. They did something like a non-confidence motion that's kind of meaningless. And then they jumped on a plane and they flew to England. So now yesterday they were meeting with King Charles III, whom I need to remind people, King Charles III came to Canada last year in May, did the throne speech, which is hilarious in and of itself, right? So they brought out the king to remind us that we were sovereign. Like the whole exercise was bizarre, right? So the king comes here and he reads the speech to us, and he does it not in the House of Commons because only commoners are allowed in the House of Commons. So the king reads the speech from the Senate, and the commoners are invited to the Senate. And before the king opens his speech, King Charles did a land acknowledgement in Ontario, where he admitted that he was on unceded lands, which is the case. Probably, I'm not familiar totally with Ontario, but I think Ontario does have a lot of unceded lands. But here in Alberta, treaties 6, 7, and 8 specifically, and there's minor geographies that are affected by other treaties, but 6, 7, and 8 are the ones that cover most of Alberta. Under those treaties, First Nations in the 1860s ceded their lands, other than the small reserves that they're living on, and they ceded them to the Crown. So now they went back to the Crown. It was all super symbolic. I don't know what King Charles is going to do. King Charles acknowledged that, hey, I had originally given you the land and then I took it back. I don't know. I'd love to have been a fly on the wall in a discussion between 6 or 7 chiefs meeting with King Charles. Now, on this morning, I saw a story. There was somebody wrote an article and showed the gifts that the chiefs brought over there to give to King Charles. And one of the gifts, I'm sorry, folks, but one of the gifts was a nice birch bark basket that was laser etched. So I thought, yeah, nothing says, First Nations craftsmanship quite like laser etching bark. I mean, a laser, super modern technology that yeah, you know where I'm going with this one, and I'm not going to go there with this one. So, John, we got a couple of any good comments that you've seen as you're strolling by? Come on, folks, give me a buzz there. For me, I'll take a second. It's a challenge. I got to read the comments, and they're sitting on the side there. People quit their jobs because of the jab. Yeah, I'm not going to go there today. All right, let me go see what I got on my list. Well, let's talk about the floor crossing, right? So I do floor crossings are interesting. I'll ask you guys that. Then somebody call me or give me a comment. Do you think there will be more floor crossings, or are they going to wait until the by-elections? And what's your thoughts on floor crossings? Now, some people like to bring up, the fact that floor crossings have been going on a long time. I think I've been on the record in the past as saying that, that, well, no, I don't think. I've been on the record in the past. I don't think floor crossings are appropriate. To me, if you're going to cross the floor, you should literally sit as an independent. So there should be a process. There should be a step. So if you're unhappy and you feel that you no longer represent the party not the party, if you feel that you no longer represent the electors in your riding and the party at the same time, then sit as an independent until the next election. And then at the next election, run for whatever party you choose to run. But this whole concept of simply crossing the floor and going to the other side, that just stinks to me. And I'll say it, like people say, oh, well, you'd be happy if it was the Conservatives recruiting Liberals. No, I wouldn't be. I wasn't happy when Danielle Smith crossed the floor, in the mid 2000s from the Wild Rose to join the Conservatives. I wasn't happy then, and supposedly she's on my side. And I wouldn't be happy if a Conservative did it tomorrow. So for me, it's nonpartisan. I don't care about your political stripes. I do not like floor crossers. And so I'd like to hear your comments on that. But I do have a chat there, so I got a nice comment there going up. So could Ottawa push through an act to take back all provincial resources, or do they have to open the Constitution? I'm not a constitutional expert, but I would say that would be a tough one. I mean, they gave us our resources in the 1930s, the Resource Transfer Act. And can you imagine if we reopen the Constitution and 9 of the other provinces? Here's how I'm going to answer that one. If every province wanted to give back their resources to Ottawa, sure, that would require an act, but try and imagine that, right? That would require reopening the Constitution. So imagine all 10 provinces says, yeah, let's reopen the Constitution, and we want to give our resources back to Ottawa. I don't think that would happen. Now, could they gang up on one? So if the other 9 provinces says, hey, we want to take resources away from Alberta and give Alberta's resources back to Ottawa. Trudeau tried to do that. Trudeau Sr., Pierre, with the national energy policy, was basically an attempt to do that, right? He was trying to take the resources back from Alberta and nationalize them, and it backfired. And I don't think that would go very far. That would be an interesting event to take the resources back. So let me go back here. Get a petition. Hey, okay, I got another one. Let's talk about this one real quick. See if we can gather a little bit of interest. Another interesting news story. I don't know if you can find this one, John. Saskatchewan gun law. Saskatchewan amended their firearm act this week and did something really, really cool. And so as we all know, we've talked about this many times. There's a gun grab, and went into effect in about 2021. Government told us to just park our firearms, just leave them locked, the ones that have been prohibited. And then at some point, they'll develop a buyback program. They're struggling with that. And because they don't have a proper buyback program, they keep having an amnesty. So basically, you keep your firearms right now until as long as this amnesty is in place. But once the amnesty, if they don't renew the amnesty, anybody who owns a restricted or a prohibited firearm from this list will become a criminal. And so, and that deadline's looming on us, right? So by October of this year, if the Liberals do not renew the amnesty, anybody who owns a firearm on that list will become a criminal. While Saskatchewan and Alberta over time have been taking steps to sort of counter that, because both provinces see that this is wrong, right? Suddenly making a guy like me, because I might have a prohibited firearm, just turning me into a criminal makes no sense, right? I've been a good citizen for 35 years. I followed the law, and now you change one law and suddenly I'm a criminal. So you can see it on the screen there. Saskatchewan plans amendments to Firearm Act amid the gun grab. You can find one of those articles, but I'll tell you what the Saskatchewan's trying to do. It's very clever. They're going to let their citizens hold on to those prohibited firearms indefinitely. And what they're going to do is they're going to give the citizens like a coupon or a certificate saying you are holding on to this firearm on behalf of the province. It's very interesting. I mean, would it hold water? Is it legal? Is it a trap so that they can get that, so that they can find out where the firearms are? It could be all those things. It needs to be debated. But I'm fundamentally happy that some governments are trying to explore options like that. Alberta's doing the same thing. I mean, Alberta passed its own Firearms Act, mimicking the one in Saskatchewan. Where here in Alberta, the path we took so far is Danielle Smith is trying to make it hard for the government to confiscate our guns. They'll be able to, they'll declare me a criminal and they'll say, you're in possession of these, but they won't be able to come and get them easily in Alberta because, she's passed rules that says you'll have to be certified to confiscate firearms. You'll have to do it no more than 3 at a time. You'll have to go in teams. You'll have to store them this way, so forth and so forth and so forth. So she's going to make it extremely difficult for somebody to confiscate the firearms, but it doesn't stop Ottawa from still calling me a criminal and pulling my firearm license. So this is a battle. This is an ugly, ugly, ugly battle that I still don't understand why the Liberals are making this a hill to die on. I said it last week. I think it's just to appease to Quebec, but then Quebec had a protest about this last week. So I don't know why they're insisting on making this a hill to die on. It makes no sense. All right. Find me a good comment, John. I'm not sure I trust this. Yeah. Like I said, caveat, I'm not 100%. I haven't read the Saskatchewan Firearm Act to know specifically if it's a trap or what it says in there. So don't hold your breath on that one. At the end of the day, I'm personally hoping that I think what will happen is the government will extend the amnesty unless they get a majority. Actually, and that's an interesting thing. Like I said, I think the Liberals will get their majority by hook or by crook in April when they run these by-elections. They'll be at like 172, which is like just the slimmest of margins, which allows them to continue to do crazy things. If they don't win the by-elections, or somebody else quits, or a couple of things happen, then all bets are off. And I have a bet with friends. I do think that if the by-elections are unsuccessful, that there will be shortly after that the writ will be dropped and Carney will send us to a general election. He can taste the majority just around the corner. He wants it. He's been sent by his handlers to fix things, so he needs to do it. Otherwise, he'll be pulled, and then somebody else will go in there. Which explains, by the way, guess where Carney's been, right? So Carney just come back from a trip to Australia and India and places like that. Sat in the House of Commons yesterday for one day. I think he's sitting tomorrow or today, and then he's off on vacation. And where's he going on vacation? He's going 2 places. He's going to England and he's going to Rome. And I don't think it's a stretch to say he's going to England because that's where he lives. I don't care what he says about, living in New York or whatever. He's going to England because that's where he lives. And then he's going to Rome because that's where he's going to go get his next set of marching orders. Cool. Call on the line. Thanks for doing this. I was running out of topics, right? Yeah, I think you guys can tell. So go ahead on the line. Name, where are you calling from?
Hey, Marty, Jesse and GP again. Nobody
Okay.
else is calling? Let's figure I'll call again.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Perfect. So just in regards to the firearms regulations that we discussed, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, there's SOR/2012-138 clearly indicates that previous to May 1st, 2020, you were not required to keep a record of the transfer of your non-restricted at the time.
Yep.
Previous to May 1st, 2020. So I don't know if you looked into that, but maybe that's a topic you might want to discuss with the viewers as well. Touchy one, I know.
Yeah. No. Maybe I won't do it on this platform. This is not my I don't want to get the Western Standard in trouble. Come see me, come see Marty, because there's a risk of giving legal advice, right? And so I'm not going to give legal advice here on how I think people should proceed when it comes to their firearms and the legislature and everything else. But I'll give you that advice on X, where I can put a different caveat and say this is my opinion as a private citizen. But if you want to take a chance, Jesse, if you want to give us some advice, what do you think people should do who are getting their those letters from the RCMP right now, sort of twisting their arms and reminding them to sign up for the compensation program? What's your advice?
My advice as a private citizen, thank you very much, Marty, for your thoughts. So just to let everybody know, previous to May 1st, 2020, it was unlawful or not required for you to keep a record of your transfer of a non-restricted firearm. Once those non-restricted firearms became prohibited, you had to keep them, hold them, not even do anything with them. But previous to that order in council, it was not required for you to keep a record of that sale. So I'm hoping that everyone has sold all their newly prohibited weapons in April of 2020. And who'd you sell them to? Well, as long as you saw a PAL holder, you didn't have to keep a record of that sale. So unfortunately, I don't know who I sold mine to, but I know all of mine are sold.
Right.
And for those that say, and I just want to, there's a one caveat, and here's my legal advice, and this is true legal advice. If you say you dropped it in the lake, you are now charged with carelessness of a firearm. And why didn't you report it to the RCMP?
Yeah.
So don't go that route.
Yeah, I see that one all the time. I lost it in the lake. That's a interesting one. I don't know if I had spoken about this last week, but I renewed my RPAL, and RPAL, folks, is it's just a PAL, right? It's a possession and acquisition license. That's the name. There's no such thing as an RPAL, but we call it an RPAL because some of us have a restricted or a non-restricted, so we add the R in front of it. My restricted possession and firearms and acquisition license was renewed last week. I was surprised. I got it in the mail. I got my card in the mail. I thought they were going to drag their feet on it and sort of hold off on it and keep sending me letters saying you haven't registered for the program. But here in Alberta, I think, is this fair to say, Jesse? Do we have a pretty supportive chief firearms officer?
Chief Firearms Officer Terry Bryant, I do believe, she is extremely supportive of Albertans and their legal right to hold firearms. Yes.
Yeah. So then they're not playing games here. So I renewed just before Christmas, and like I said, whatever, 8 weeks later, I got it. I was happy to get it, and then I look and I reminded people, right, when you get your PAL. It comes stuck on a piece of paper, and don't throw out that white piece of paper, because at the bottom of that white piece of paper are usually some conditions. And if you read, it does say, don't throw these out. Keep it with your card because the conditions are part of the license. And I was surprised when I read my conditions that they're nearly identical to the old one. So there's no shenanigans being played in Alberta, which is good.
Yeah. Same with me. Sorry to, I hope there's no delay. Same with mine. Mine was renewed spring, like in 2024. So they're still renewing our pals at that point, right?
Yeah. And then I'll say this as an observation. A lot of people who, when you come to sign the petition, you have to show me ID. And I'm really impressed by impressed and surprised by the number of Albertans who have a PAL. Like when they're opening their wallet, you and they're giving you their driver's license. I often see that right there. It's a bit, the older PALs used to be recognizable. They had like that purple and blue stripe to it, and they stood out. Not that I'm peeking in people's wallets to see what they have, but it casually I can observe that there's a lot of people in Alberta that have firearm permits, which I'm not surprised by, and I'm glad to hear that your opinion of our chief firearm officer is that she's a reasonable lady, holding up her end of the deal. Awesome. All right, thanks, Jesse. So we're kind of running out of time here. I got a couple of minutes. Literally, I'd love one more call. I mean, I've almost exhausted every topic that I had on here. I'm trying to go through my list. I'm going to have maybe a couple more topics next week. What else happened this week, John? Anything that you can flash up on the screen? Oh, well, I'll bring this up. I heard a rumor that Pierre Poilievre is on his way to Texas. And then everybody's saying that Pierre's on his way to go talk with Joe Rogan. Find that interesting. I'll believe it when I see it. I think Pierre's probably more likely going to Texas as part of a trade delegation, oil and all of that good stuff. I guess we never talked about the war in Iran. That seems to be winding down. Thank you. Somebody got me a call. Let's take one last call before we sign off. So name and where you're calling from, and thanks for doing this.
Yeah, hi, this is Dave. I live South Shore Park, east of Beaumont.
Go ahead, Dave. Awesome.
Yeah. Hey, I have two questions. So I mentioned where I live in an acreage subdivision. Will there be canvassers reaching our area, or is it mainly going to be in urban neighborhoods?
Good question. Door to door is probably going to be. I live on an acreage as well, right? And somebody asked me that. How come you're not going door to door? And I'm like, door to door on an acreage is difficult. It's a lot of walking. Everybody has gates and so forth and so forth. So I'd say most door to door activity will occur in urban residential area. Your best bet, if you're looking for a place, is to just go to Stay Free Alberta and then enter Beaumont or Edmonton, and then you'll see locations that are either permanent or for a weekend. So yeah. I don't think they'll go door to door. Yeah. But go ahead. Part two, your question is?
Yeah. My second question is, from your view, not asking what you would do, but from your view, if the referendum question is presented to Alberta residents and the outcome is negative, what options might be available to those who support this initiative?
Oh God, very few. That's a fearful outcome for me because it would.
Oh yeah.
I think we would be viewed as. I think it would give Carney and the Liberals a new sense of confidence that they can do whatever the heck they want, and there's no consequences because Albertans will continue to take a beating. No, I don't know. And I'm not going anywhere. Okay. So I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to continue to stay here and fight and do what I can to, I guess at that point we hoped plan B. Okay. I'll answer it this way. Plan B is, Danielle is still trying to get a better deal for Alberta. She has her Sovereignty Act. She thinks that we can get a better deal within Confederation. So I would say if we have an unsuccessful referendum, we could still say, well, look, hopefully maybe it's 40% who came out. That's still a pretty good bargaining chip for Danielle. So I guess we'd give it to Danielle, and now we all line up behind Danielle and say, okay, well, let's keep fighting to get a better deal. That's the
right.
Yeah.
Okay. And thinking back about the Quebec referendum, it's not like, well, once I died, everything just went away.
Right.
There was still, there's still been that percolating in the background for years, but you and I, we don't have a generation to wait.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
I mean, I'm already happy. I didn't even think I'd see a movement like this in my lifetime. So now I'm seeing it in my lifetime. So this is, I mean, hey, listen, I've been sitting on the side of the road for 25 days in a row now, doing 4 or 5 hours a day. And people ask me that, like, do you think this is going to be successful? I'm like, I wouldn't be doing this if I thought this was a waste of time, right? I've committed like 120 hours of volunteer time. And if it's unsuccessful, me personally, I will still look inwards and say, I did my part. I tried to do something. I'm one of those guys. I feel sorry for people who drive by every day and give me a thumbs down or whatever. I feel like saying to a lot of those people, like, what have you ever done? Right. So I feel good about having stood for something. And I'm not going to get demoralized. I mean, I'll cherish the event. I hope it's successful. I'm confident it's going to be successful. But if it's not, then I'll come up with a plan B down the road. I mean, look at you, and you brought up Quebec. I mean, Quebec, I would say Quebec's 2 referendums ended up being pretty good for Quebec. They've gotten a pretty sweet deal subsequent to all of that, right? So maybe it is what it is for us. We'll see. Yeah, great question. Thanks, Dave.
Okay, thanks for your time, Marty.
All right, cheers, folks. Okay, so or cheers, Dave. So we're getting there. I'm getting you, folks. You know this. I think you can sense. Hopefully my nervousness from the first few shows is going away. I'm getting the hang of this now. I definitely got to come up with a few more topics. Me and John are working together great now. We're figuring out the system, the questions, everything else. It is up to you, though. This is a show where I don't want to just be doing the monologues, although I like doing the monologues. Give me some better feedback, some questions. Maybe go underneath this video. After you've watched the video, you can give me questions for next week if you want, but don't be shy. Don't feel like you got to build up that courage to call me. It's no big deal. We're just 2 folks having a chat. Maybe I need to bring a beer or something, and this is water, and then we'll feel like we're having a lunch hour chat over a coffee or something like that. Anyways, closing comments here, as usual. Thanks for joining this week. You're helping me. I hope you enjoy this. I look forward to coming here. Not going to lie. I do have a lot of podcasts and other events that some days get tedious. I look forward to this one. I like coming downtown. Gives me an excuse to come downtown. The folks here are fantastic. Corey Morgan, I didn't even mention that. Corey Morgan swung by my petition signing location 2 days ago, and coincidentally I saw somebody drive by and I said, I think that's Corey, and then sure enough it was Corey. So thanks for dropping by, Corey. And like I said, the folks here are great. Love coming down here. And I encourage you to support. We talked about the mainstream media and how they're garbage, so it is up to these independent medias like the Western Standard. So I encourage you to get a membership, right? It's I mean, if you're watching it, you already know where it is, but www.westernstandard.news, $10 a month, or pay up front and it's $100 a year. It's absolutely worth it. And like I said, I'm here every Thursday at 1:00 Mountain Time. So join me next week, folks. Cheers.